I was thinking golf is a great segue into growth mindset and limiting beliefs. You're talking about chipping. I'm like, well, just about everything that fails
Right.
when it comes to chipping and putting is mental. It's not like you physically
Yeah.
can't do it.
Right.
It's these
Well,
limiting
and-
beliefs.
And you have to actually like to practice if you want to get good at that game.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're not going to get good by going out every other Sunday and playing 18 with your buddies and a six-pack. Like, you've got to go work at your craft.
In 3, 2.
All right, and welcome to episode 3 of the Reclaiming Man podcast, where we strive to empower men to take control of their lives and become the best version of themselves. As a tribe of like-minded individuals, we believe in the power of growth mindset. As men, we face unique challenges and pressures in today's society. It's easy to fall into the trap of complacency or negativity, but with the right mindset and support, we can achieve anything we set our minds to. Through our conversations and insights, we aim to inspire and motivate each other to embrace growth and change and to challenge ourselves to reach our full potential. So join us, fellow tribe members, on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Let's reclaim our masculinity and become the strong, confident, and resilient men we were meant to be.
Nailed it.
Yes.
Let's
Welcome
go.
to the tribe, gentlemen.
Welcome to the
I'm
tribe. All right. So I know we touched on it there in the intro, but we're going to talk today about growth mindset, which is something, as we all have individually been going on this journey towards just bettering ourselves and understanding what, maybe as much as anything, what our limiting beliefs are and what has held us back in the past. You start reading this material and you think you get a grasp on it. And a lot of the material that we read, you know, it's centered on the same set of universal truths. And then you read or you listen to Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Carol Dweck, and you're like, what the fuck did I just listen to?
Yeah.
And your whole mindset on this game just shifts. At least that's what it was like for me. How about y'all?
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Such a difference between the theoretical knowledge and then implementing it, making it happen in life. We've been talking a lot about in our conversations recently, as some of us haven't had as much success as we wanted in areas. And a big part of it is how do we start to look at those temporary setbacks instead of perceiving ourselves as failing at this objective or failing at achieving our goals, but just a part of the process and something that we actually enjoy and still find the power to push through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when you guys first brought the concept up to me, it almost felt like cheating. When you first initially hear it, it's like, if you fail, it's okay, which it is. But the whole concept of enjoying your failures and finding enjoyment in that, which can help you power through those moments that are tough for you, is very empowering and just makes it fun.
Yeah, so let's take a minute here and just set the stage. So, you know, when we talk about growth mindset, what does that mean exactly? So Dr. Carol Dweck has an excellent book on this called Mindset. And she talks about how there's two different types of mindsets. There's the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset says, effectively, we are what we are. We're born with what we have. And there's no way for us to become better versions of ourselves, essentially. The fixed mindset says the opposite of success is failure. And a growth mindset says the opposite of success is quitting. And that failure is just a stepping stone, that you aren't going to always be good at everything that you do. And in fact, if you look at the most successful people out there, most of them are going to follow a growth mindset. And most of the most successful people out there have failed more than anybody else. That's why they're so successful. And it's the act of being able to push past that. We talked about this in the last podcast, right? Where it's like, you go to the gym, you work out for a day, you work out for 2 days, you work out for 3 days, you don't see results, and so you quit. And it's this idea that with a growth mindset, you're actually looking to see these challenges, or these disciplines that you have to undertake as opportunities to like learn and grow and develop through them, versus somebody in a fixed mindset is just going to try something, and at the first, you know, obstacle or roadblock, they roll over and wet on themselves.
Yeah. On the fixed mindset, specifically growing up, most of society and our education system encouraged to a large extent a fixed mindset in concepts like IQ tests and standardized testing and different segmentation of your school class based on perceived intelligence at that specific point in time. And it was almost as if how you tested before you were the age of 10 determined the path that you were on in life and determined your destiny. And you take these aptitude tests in middle school and high school, and it would set you on this track that you believed because experts told you were set up to only make it to a certain point in life. And that certain point is what most people defined as success. So it really changed my perspective a lot as we started having these conversations, as we've been reading books, listening to podcasts, especially Andrew Huberman that you mentioned, talks about neuroplasticity and how our brain can continue to adapt and change into our adulthood. And it's not this fixed amount of intelligence that we have on anything, or fixed ability when it comes to any pursuit that we go after.
So you said something there that reminded me of maybe my favorite story I've come across in this topic. And it's this idea that, you set at a young age these expectations for who you are and what you're capable of. And my favorite story is about a guy who he'd been not very successful. He actually had been a failure. He wasn't very good in school. He didn't care. He was smart, but he didn't really care to apply those skills in any way. But he decided to take the SAT test, and he got like a 1500 on it. And when he got the 1500, it gave him the kick in the shorts to realize that, wow, he actually has something here, and he's as smarter than he thinks or thought he was. So he started to apply himself, and he went out and he went to college, ended up getting into college, and had a very successful career. And many years later, he gets a letter in the mail, basically saying that the SAT test that he took, the score he received was incorrect, and he'd actually scored like a 600. And there were a handful of people that had a mistake. And it wasn't, nothing changed from that. He scored what he scored. His intelligence didn't go up or down as a result, but he was given a moment of belief to say that you are better than you think you are. And I think a lot of times, and that's what changed. And a lot of times people with fixed mindsets, they don't believe that they're capable of exceeding where they are today. And we talk about this a bit with identity, where when you have that fixed mindset and you think that you're only capable of X, if anything good happens in your life that gets you better than X, 20% better than X, you don't believe that you deserve it. And in time, you'll actually self-sabotage your way back down to X, which is really, honestly, quite tragic, right? You don't attribute any of the success that you have to, your own abilities and capabilities. It's a bit of a cycle that people get caught in when they have this fixed mindset that says they can't improve, they can't get better.
Yeah. We as parents do it a lot to our kids. They talk about their dreams of becoming a singer or a professional athlete or something that we perceive as unrealistic. And we always say, what's your plan B? Because that's probably not going to happen.
Burn the fucking boats.
Yeah. It's a bit tragic, and it was very convicting to me the more I read about this and thinking about the conversations that I had with both of my daughters. And one of them, I wouldn't say it's too far gone. She's 19, but I had to really make up for it, start to speak truth into her life, that she can do things that she doesn't necessarily believe she was capable of, because we said, no, you probably can't do this. And my hope is that by a little bit of a course correction, she won't get caught in the same, like you said, negative cycle that I was in for 12 years of my life of, well, corporate America is where I belong because this is what I tested into. And this is what I was, going to school for to some extent, or believing that this is the conventional approach to earning money, making a living, pursuing my dreams, etc.
It's fascinating that you bring up the children aspect, how, we crush their dreams in a sense by implementing a fixed mindset on them, where I feel when they are, from first born to say 7 or 8, we almost encourage a growth mindset on them because we just watch them grow and learn how to walk and do all these things. And we don't question, like, we don't say, oh, well, my son's Jackson. So like, well, he's not walking at 1 year old. Like, what's wrong with him? He'll walk when he walks. And you just let that happen. And why I mean, my kids aren't old enough for me to tell them they can't do X, Y, or Z yet, which I won't because, we're doing this podcast and learning before that. But I mean, I had that with my parents where I wanted to do
Exactly.
music and they're like, well, you should go to college. And of course I just dropped out of college and failed out of college because it just wasn't something where my heart was. It wasn't that I wasn't smart enough. It's just in life, we want to like go explore things that are interesting to us and grow and learn. And
Yeah.
why? Oh, go ahead.
You talk about kids, and to me, they are the quintessential piece of evidence for growth mindset. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
you think about an
Absolutely.
adult, and you tell an adult that, hey, you can go and search this wonderful thing called the internet to become anything. Like, you can gain whatever skills you want to gain to get whatever job you want to gain. And even if it's just like incremental, hey, if you just go apply yourself for a month, you're going to go ahead and get, or a year or whatever, you're going to find a promotion, you're going to find a new career. And people will be like, oh, no, I can't do that. Now let's go back to an infant who's never walked before. They can't talk. They probably don't really understand us yet. And they don't know how to walk. And yet they get up and they try and they fail and they try and they fail. They fall on their face. They smash their face into the table. And that's one of the few times as parents where we don't discourage them. We just encourage them to keep trying, to keep failing, and to emphasize the process of going through and trying and continuing the effort, even in the face of mounting failure. And they do that without being told to, right? Without being prodded to. They just do it because they look around and they see us doing it and they're like, yo, I want to do this too.
Right.
And they just struggle through and they figure it out and eventually they walk. And try to put yourself in the place of a 1-year-old, who's barely able to communicate, who can barely crawl. And now they just make the decision that they're going to walk. Like, the leap that they're taking from where they are to what that gets them is an unbelievably big chasm. And then we as adults are like, I don't want to spend weekends studying to get better at anything. Or I tried to learn how to skateboard, but I fell once and skinned my knee. And I was like, I'm too old for this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's such a wild dichotomy. And like, as parents, why do we stop encouraging that? Like, how is it my job to tell my child that they're not capable of doing something they want to do? Like,
And why do we project our limiting beliefs onto them?
Right. Because you hit the nail on the head. That's it. I don't think it's that we don't think that they can become a star athlete. It's we didn't think that we could become a star athlete. And so as a result, you can't either. When in reality, if you look at like pro golfers, a lot of them have been actively pursuing that as a career from a very young age. They've got thousands of hours of practice under their belt. That's what makes them better. Sure, some of them are going to have more naturally gifted athleticism than others, but you can't tell me if John Daly can go out and win a golf tournament.
That's right.
Any average person can't also go out and win a golf tournament, provided they give enough practice. So why is it? Like, is it cultural? Is it, as you said, Michael, it's just, this is how it was for us? Maybe instead of digging into why things are the way they are, what can we do as parents, as friends, as supporters of one another to help each other and help our kids overcome limiting beliefs?
One great example is Scott and I, our wives both homeschool our kids. And I watch that happen, and the way my wife just promotes, she doesn't even know what growth mindset is. I mean, she does because I've been talking to her about it leading up to this podcast. But she just lets them be. She gives them nuggets of information. She's not critical when they, don't learn how to read right away. And I know not everyone can homeschool their children, and not everyone even wants to. But what we can do is still we have time at the end of our days to like talk to our kids if they're like, say, in the public school system, and explain to them the concept of what we're talking about and learning. And just because they are maybe not doing well in a math class, but you see your daughter drawing really well, or creatively writing in some aspect. You will see what they're extremely good at and just encourage that and say, it's okay that you're not great at math or whatever they're not good at. We'll work on it because it's still a skill that at the school you're going to, you have to test on and learn. But as long as you're being positive towards them and encouraging them at what they are good at.
But I also think how we encourage them and what they're good at and the words we use are really important. Like,
Yes.
telling a kid, oh, you're so smart versus like saying you're so smart to me is a fixed mindset construct that says, hey, your brain has more horsepower,
Mhm.
versus praising someone for, the effort they're putting in to improve.
Yeah,
Because
that's really paid off.
Right. Right. We talk a lot about the 1%, improvement.
Uh-huh.
And with kids and anybody in general, but on this topic of kids, as long as our kids are striving to get better and they, reframing failure from, and this is where standardized tests and just the general education system is really letting kids down.
Agreed.
Giving someone a test and then giving them an F or a D or a C on that test, it's going to make them feel like a failure. And how we then hold those kids up or down relative to other kids, where the reality is, again, going back to intro, failure is absolutely every bit a natural part of the learning process. And it's not something to be ashamed of. Now, if you're failing because you just don't give a shit or you're not trying or, you're not putting in the effort, Kara wrote Mindset. And one of the things she came back after the book came out and swept the nation and was really surprised by is people's idea that growth mindset means you simply have to praise effort. And that's not true. That's not it. That's not growth mindset. It's when effort is leading to results, but you're continuously putting in the effort, right? It has to lead towards something. It has to be directed towards an outcome. And as long as you try something, you fail, but then you learn from it, and then you earn and return, learn, earn, return. One of Michael's favorite quotes.
Yep.
As long as you're applying those learnings and self-correcting your behavior or your study or your next effort again towards that outcome, like that's the point. The point is not to just be like, oh, good job. Like, here's your gold star for attempting it. It's more about having a consistent and concerted effort towards improvement and towards, trying and attempting, knowing that failure will happen, but that you pick yourself up and you try again.
I think
Yeah.
what you just talked about, I read you guys a quote the other morning as part of like one of my daily readings that I read to you guys from John Maxwell. And the quote was, fail early, fail often, but always fail forward and turn your mistakes into stepping stones for success. And your whole talk you just gave reminded me of that and went right to just made me think of that because you're so right. We're all going to fail, not at everything, but it's turning that failure into a stepping stone for success.
So I'm going to spring a question on you guys that you did not prepare for, but
Cool.
maybe take a moment to reflect if you need, but I'd love to hear an example of, a moment in, say, the last 6 months when you did overcome limiting beliefs and how a growth mindset played a role in that process. Michael, cold plunge, go.
Well, I could talk about cold plunge. We've talked about that in some other episodes. It's a great example. I was actually thinking of this podcast and social media and the limiting beliefs that I had about social media, that it was devolving and deviating from its original intention of connecting people. And my limiting belief when it came to social media was the solution of disconnecting. It led me to eventually disconnect from social media, thinking that was the solution. And while it may have been a partial solution for me personally, it wasn't the correct approach to impact or affect change. And so thinking about what we're doing now in these conversations and this podcast is a good illustration of something that I knew I was going to fail at initially from the right language, the right tone, figuring it out, all the mechanics, the logistics of it. It seemed overwhelmingly big, something that was beyond reach. And in my head, there was like, no way I would be doing a podcast. And even when you were first talking about it and we first started talking, the three of us, I was like, I'll do some research. I'll read books. I'll be happy to contribute some content on the back end. But in the back of my head, my limiting beliefs were thinking, social media, what can you really accomplish with this? Everything is going to hell. And this isn't going to be that productive. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the only way to that limiting belief about social media and to start helping it bridge connections or make connections between people, including the three of us, was to participate and be involved. And within the course of a month of having conversations about it, I changed my belief about social media and started to believe that we can still positively impact people's lives. Social media can still positively impact minimally the three of us, but ideally a much broader audience. And it's a really powerful example of a limiting belief and then changing that limiting belief and accepting that failure along the way is not only going to be inevitable, but it also can be very rewarding. I mean, there's so many times that we end up just laughing at the silly shit that we end up saying. And that stuff it's just as much value in the stuff that we mess up that only the three of us perhaps get to enjoy more so than the rest of the folks who don't get to hear it because we edit it out. But maybe we leave some of it in. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example, actually. And probably one we all felt and maybe still feel, where I've never really been one to learn in public, to share. Like, I've heard this phrase a lot over my career. I know there's a lot of people in tech who learn in public and as a result have become very famous, very well known, make their living. These people, they own their brand. And I believe that people who own their brand are the entrepreneurs of the future. So I know all of these things. And yet I'm a pretty private guy, right? Like, if I could live on 1,000 acres where I didn't see a neighbor, that would be my jam. So the idea of going out into the internet and willingly sharing things about my life and my family and my friends and my personal struggle and limiting belief, it's a pretty uncomfortable thing to do, to be honest. And it was mentally very easy to say, this is just who I am. I don't need to change. I'm not good enough. I'm not skilled enough, or I don't care enough, or whatever excuse I want to make. When the reality is, I'm an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. And I literally just said that the future of entrepreneurship is owning your brand. So if I want to be an entrepreneur in 5 years and in 10 years, I damn well need to own my own brand. So that's a great example, actually, of these limiting beliefs. Preston, you got any examples you want to share?
I mean, yeah, just technology in general. Since I've met you, the computer I'm looking at right now is one of your old ones that I'm borrowing. And I wouldn't even say that I've overcome it yet. I'm in the thick of learning and understanding technology. And I work with you two guys who are such, you're so great at utilizing and typing and understanding just how, I don't even know how to explain it because I'm still learning, but it's fun to me, but it's even still frustrating. And I have to like step back and remind myself about the growth mindset concept, because every time I come on here or every time I go into Notion and work on something that we're doing, or go into Canva and putz around on an idea that I'm working, it's little increments, that 1%, maybe even sometimes it's 0.5% that I'm getting better at understanding. It's not that I don't know how a computer works, but it's not a world that I've lived in. I've always just been in a blue collar world and not utilizing computers.
That's it. The limiting belief of like the blue collar versus white collar.
Right.
And the hardest part for me was identifying these different areas of my life and what are the limiting beliefs in each one of them.
Yeah.
It's my job, it's my career, it's my art, it's my relationships, it's my parenting, it's my friendships. Like we have limiting beliefs about just about everything in our life.
I can't even remember anybody's name. How many of us are like that? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It would be amazing to just follow somebody around for a week and just jot down all the things they say out loud that are limiting beliefs. Like that's not true.
Right.
I have been bad at names. Rogan actually has a great, like, if you want to get pumped up for a workout or if you decide to go on like a 30-day, 60-day type of workout challenge, like go listen to Rogan's motivational stuff where he talks about how just because you failed in the past does not mean you're a failure. Like you're not the person you were a year ago or a week ago. You're not that person. You're not the person that failed. You have failed, but that doesn't make you a failure. Like this gets back into something we talked about last week. You have thousands and tens of thousands of thoughts in a day. And every single one of those thoughts is a moment for you to make the right decision, to improve and to get better. And so just because you have failed in the past doesn't mean that you can't decide today, right now, that failure isn't going to define you and that you're not going to quit because that's what you've done in the past. You've been a quitter. Don't be a quitter today. Make the decision that you're going to push through and you're going to try again.
Yeah, I think that's the stuff that we've been trying to do together. Go after these challenges, go after the things we know we're going to fail at. We just were talking about it earlier today about how I'm failing at waking up at the right time in the mornings. And in my head, my limiting beliefs are like, oh, you're not feeling as well. And because you're not feeling as well, you can't wake up on time and you can't do these things. That's not true.
Right.
Would it be harder? Yes. But is it impossible for me to wake up at 5 a.m. still? No, it's
Michael's giving $1,000 to the first comment on this YouTube video if he doesn't get up at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning.
I'm getting up at 8 a.m. tomorrow.
Oh, you got to send us a polo for proof then.
Where do we go from talking about what the growth mindset is and overcoming these limiting beliefs that we have? We have to identify them, we have to change our beliefs, but then how do we cultivate it? I was starting to talk about going after things, doing things that are hard, right? Knowing that we're going to fail along the way. And cold plunge, great example, but even something as simple as what time you wake up. And Preston, you were originally talking about how you used to snooze your alarm every day.
Yeah.
So put you on the spot. How much do you snooze your alarm still? Or do you even?
So,
I don't know.
I've adjusted what I do. So at first my goal was I'm not going to snooze. And I did that for about 3 weeks, maybe a month, where I would set my alarm for 5 and then I would just get up. And I wasn't enjoying it. I like to do 2 snoozes. But what I would do in the past is I would sometimes like do 3 or 4 or, so now I do 2. And I know I'm going to do 2. And every day I set my alarm for 5 o'clock, but I'm up at 5. Well, it's like 5:18 because for some reason snoozes are 9 minutes. But
weird.
I do 2 snoozes and then I'm up. But yeah, so I do my snooze and then since December, I get in the cold plunge every morning and I've been doing 200 to 300 push-ups every day. And those are my 3 things, I guess you would call them non-negotiables, that if I do those every day, I know they're not easy, but they're not hard. Then I can do all kinds of other things too.
When it comes to cultivating a growth mindset, the most important aspect of a growth mindset is reframing how you think about inputs versus outputs. And what I mean by that is in society, we talk about goals a lot. And I've actually transitioned away from goal-oriented thinking quite a bit as I've gone on this growth mindset journey where the goals are the outcomes. And if you're only focusing on the outcomes, like imagine you set 1 goal a year, let's say 1 goal a quarter. And let's say you accomplish them every single quarter in your life. That means you're only going to be satisfied like 4 days a year on the days that you accomplish your goals. And as soon as you accomplish a goal, you've hit the mountaintop. What now? Like if you actually hit a mountaintop, the next thing to do is go down.
Yeah.
And so I've moved away from this idea of focusing on those outputs. And instead, it's about focusing on the inputs. And my absolute favorite quote that covers this says, the person who wants to walk to a destination is never going to walk as far as the person who just loves to walk. If all you're ever doing is focusing on getting from A to B, it's such a cliche to say, focus on the journey, not the destination. But if you take a minute to think about what that actually means, it's a cornerstone of the growth mindset. If you're only living your life in pursuit of a destination, you're missing life.
Yeah.
Like life is what's happening while you're pursuing something. And so if you transition that focus from, I want to achieve this goal, and instead you start to say, I am going to enjoy the pursuit of this goal. You can still have the goal. You still want to pursue things. But if your focus is on those inputs, instead of saying, I want to run an 8-minute mile, if you instead start to learn to love to run, you're going to have not only a much higher success of getting to your 8-minute mile, you're actually going to enjoy the process along the way. And you're not going to spend all of your time pursuing and never feeling satisfied. A cornerstone belief of mine is that success without fulfillment is just complete and utter failure. It doesn't matter how successful you are if you aren't fulfilled. And what really switched the light on for me with growth mindset was when you realize that success isn't defined by achieving, but success is instead defined by the enjoyment of the struggle of pursuit. You can't possibly have success without fulfillment. It's impossible. And to me, that is such an incredibly simple but powerful belief. If you enjoy the pursuit of a goal instead of pursuing a goal, you're going to spend every day of your life fulfilled.
Agreed.
And what do you want as an individual? Do you want to have 4 days of fulfillment a year on your quarterly goal? Or do you want to go to bed every night knowing that your day was lived with purpose and intention and you had fulfillment that day?
Yeah, it's like the greatest life hack ever.
It
Because
really is.
you're totally right.
Like I think of my 2022 and I was always pursuing. I over-indexed on career. So I was pursuing, hard to say what, more success, more income, a bigger sale. But at no point was I stopping to smell the roses. There's another cliche. Like all of these things come from these truisms. Like I just spent this last weekend on a bucket list golf destination. And it would be easy to look at my career and say, you haven't done what you want to do yet. You're not retired. You're not this. You don't have, these investments. You don't have these real estate properties or whatever. But then you stand there on the 16th tee at TPC Scottsdale and you're like, holy fuck, I'm here. Right. And do you want to be able to sink into that moment and have that as a memory that you'll never forget? Or do you want to be so busy racing past this current most beautiful place that you've ever been because there's potentially another beautiful place around the next corner that you're pursuing?
Every area of our lives. We've been teaching ourselves, we've been taught to pursue goals and pursue success and pursue the reward that comes with it. But once we're able to find the reward throughout the whole process, through the growth, through the failures, we've multiplied our level of contentment. It's not an easy calculation that you can do and say, oh, I'm 10 times happier because I am finding it enjoyable to do something that I used to think was hard. The thing that stood out about what you were just saying there, Scott, especially in the context of like careers and professionally, oftentimes I find myself thinking about the next level, that I could get, whether it's a promotion or a salary increase or a job change altogether, looking at that next thing as, okay, once I get to this point, then this will be a successful year. Or you get to the end of the year and it's your annual review and you get the feedback that you want. And so, okay, look back at it. Now I can say this was successful. But what if instead of waiting until after we have grown to say that it's successful, we just say that growth itself is successful? That's the question that I've been thinking a lot about as the solution to a growth mindset. It's just defining success as growth, period. As long as we're growing. Doesn't mean that at some days we don't have tremendous growth, but the 1% piece that, Scott, you've talked quite a bit about really highlights what we're after here.
There's a video by Dr. Andrew Huberman who he really focuses on dopamine and its influence on the growth mindset and the effort reward systems. And everything I've seen by the guy is absolute top notch and really aligns with my way of thinking. Michael, why don't you go ahead and roll this and we can listen to 30 to 60 seconds of what he has to say here.
So you can tell yourself the effort part is the good part. I know it's painful. I know this doesn't feel good, but I'm focused on this. I'm going to start to access the reward. You will find the rewards, meaning the dopamine release inside of effort if you repeat this over and over again. And what's beautiful about it is that it starts to become reflexive for all types of effort. When we focus only on the trophy, only on the grade, only on the win as the reward, you undermine that entire process. So how do you do this? You do this in those moments of the most intense friction. You tell yourself, this is very painful. And because it's painful, it will evoke an increase in dopamine release later, meaning it will increase my baseline in dopamine. But you also have to tell yourself that in that moment, you are doing it by choice and you're doing it because you love it. And I know that sounds like lying to yourself. And in some ways it is lying to yourself, but it's lying to yourself in the context of a truth, which is that you want it to feel better.
You can stop
You
it
want it to feel even pleasurable.
What is so incredible about this concept, right, is it's easy to show up when it's easy to show up. And I know this is something we've talked about, but when you're feeling great and you've got the time and you can go to the gym and your body's feeling great and you're just pumping iron and you're looking in the mirror and things are looking good, like that's easy.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can make it, I'm going to not say easy, but when you can flip the reward to where the reward is the action itself, the painful action, in this case, working out, and you start to enjoy to work out, it doesn't become work anymore. You do it because you enjoy it. And similar to what I said earlier, who do you think is going to be in better shape? The person that loves to work out or the person that wakes up every day saying, oh, fuck, I got to work out today? And now translate that to every area of your life. Who's going to be better in business? Who's going to eat healthier? Who's going to have better sex with their spouse? Who's going to have sex with their spouse? Who's going to have a better relationship? This is the I get to versus I have to read to my kids and put them to bed tonight. In 20 years, I would literally give every dime I've ever earned to go back and be able to put my kids to bed one more time. It's I get to, not I have to. And that's one of the most fundamental flips from fixed to growth mindset. Stop thinking about what you have to do and start figuring out how to enjoy it so that you get to. Then it's not hard anymore.
Amazing. Yeah, so good.
Oh,
Me
so
too.
good.
I like that piece that you said. You have to, I get to versus I have to. I like that a lot.
So any last thoughts tonight, gentlemen, before we wrap?
I'm just excited to grow with you guys
Yeah.
because, you guys are part of my motivation just as much as, my family is. when I don't want to get in that pool in the morning, I think Michael and Scott would. They'd already be in the pool. So get your ass in there. And I use you guys as motivation with all the things I don't want to do in a day. And I just think, well,
We get to
they're
do it
doing it.
together. We get
And
to do it
maybe-
together. Yeah.
yeah, we get to do it together. And maybe you guys aren't doing it and I'm not doing it, but if we all think we are and have this internal motivation for each other, you know?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm hopeful that our audience recognizes is the unique extra bit of power and motivation and inspiration you get when you start to bring other people into your tribe. And that's why we're hoping to bring, people into the Reclaiming Man tribe, so to speak.
Yes. Find a tribe.
Yeah.
If you have a tribe, utilize the tribe. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. That's how this group came together, is we weren't afraid to put ourselves out there and to start having meaningful conversations. And if you don't have that tribe right now, well, I promise you, for most people, you do, you just don't know it. There's people that are already in your circle that don't know that you're worthy of being in their tribe and don't know necessarily that they're worthy of being in yours. But just opening that door of communication, somebody has to start it. And ultimately, you're also welcome to join our tribe.
Yeah.
If you need accountability, if you want to have some of these conversations, find us on social, find us on Facebook, follow us wherever, have the conversation, start the conversation. A big part of what we're doing right now is helping ourselves and each other and others navigate from more of this fixed mindset to growth mindset, from lacking discipline to having discipline. And you hit it there, Press. Having that accountability with other people has been a massive unlock for all of us, for sure.
Yeah. So I hope everyone who's listening feels inspired to perhaps comment about a limiting belief that they have, or something that they're struggling with, or something that they want accountability for in their life, something that they're trying to share.
Yeah, the key with growth is there is no finite end date. It's a lifelong journey, and it really starts with, willingness to embrace challenges and opportunities for learning and growth. And, you hear us talk about cold plunges a lot. It's why we do them. It's because they're challenging, and it's a forcing function for us to get out of our head and to do things that are uncomfortable, and to prove to ourselves that we aren't held back by these preconceived notions or ideas on who we are, what we're capable of. I know Michael has shared in the past, he hated being cold. He hated cold water. And I'm not sure if this is going to make the cut or not. But Michael was just sharing how he does a cold plunge in his tub, and he's buying accessories to make his tub, go above the drain line. And he's buying a straw to be able to fully submerge and breathe underwater, right? Like,
It's going to be amazing.
It's because you've learned to enjoy and to love the cold plunge. And as we learn to enjoy other areas of our lives that are currently a struggle, I know all of us are all right now struggling a bit. Maybe not you, Preston, but Michael and I with that 5 a.m., 5:30 wake up. But there was a period of months where we were doing it every day and we loved it, and still do. I encourage y'all to really think about your life and think about those limiting beliefs and find those opportunities where growth seems hard and it seems difficult, and just work to lean into that. And as Dr. Huberman shared, in the moment, being in that 45-degree water or pushing through that last set in your workout, like taking a moment to really be proud of yourself, to be proud of the hard work, to say, I showed up today. I know that by showing up today, I'm going to feel a lot better later, but I also know that this hard work feels fucking great because I'm doing it. And if you can find those opportunities in your life, and as Michael said earlier, this isn't just with your health, all areas of your life. If you need to show up more, if you don't have good relationships, it may be because you're not investing in your relationships. And that might be hard because maybe those relationships are strained or damaged. But if you push through that and you start to learn to love the overcoming of any of the previous things that held you back in a relationship, you're going to find your relationships will improve, believe it or not. So I just encourage you to find the areas of your life that might be insufficient or unfulfilling right now for you, and find ways to lean into it, and find ways to challenge yourself and to learn how to enjoy the challenge. Because ultimately, when you begin to see challenges as opportunities for growth, that's where the growth mindset is really adopted. So, as usual, you can find us on all the socials: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Reclaiming Man. Feel free to follow us anywhere. If any of the things we talked about today sparked particular interest, go ahead and hit us up. Slide into our DMs, leave a comment, whatever. This is a subject we're all very passionate about and super interested to talk to others about. So come find us, engage in a conversation, especially if you're not the type of person that often engages in conversations. If you find that uncomfortable, if you find that hard, I can't think of a better episode to encourage you to push through and come find us.
Yeah.
All right, tribe. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
I just hear that music in my head every time too.